Have you ever felt so stressed out at work that you actually had panic attacks? Well, I have. In today's video, I'm going to be going over 5 strategies that you can use to combat stress at work. These are strategies that I have personally used, and these are also strategies that some of the world's top CEOs and leaders use inside of their organizations. Before we jump into today's video, please remember to hit that thumbs up and give the channel a like if you want more content just like this. So, not that long ago, when I was working on my latest book, Leading with Vulnerability, I had a series of panic attacks. And I was so stressed out with work and the fact that I had to write a book about vulnerability when I myself was not vulnerable, that I gave myself a series of panic attacks. So I know exactly what it feels like to be so stressed out at work that your body, your brain, and everything shuts down. I used to work full-time for various organizations around 15 years ago, and I also vividly remember being so stressed out going to work that I would wake up and I would have butterflies in my stomach and I would just feel queasy and uncomfortable, and I would get that feeling of dread having to show up to the office. I know what that's like. You probably know what that's like as well. So what exactly do you do about it? What do you do to combat stress that you have at work? Now, before we talk about how to do that, I like to think of stress in terms of 2 different types of categories of stress. There is variable stress, and there is fixed stress. Now, variable stress is something that might happen because it's seasonal. Maybe it's because of a project or because of a particular assignment. So for example, if you are in accounting, you might feel particularly stressed out during times when people are filing their tax returns. For example, maybe February, March, or April each year. That is a variable stress because it's not something that's continuous throughout the year. Another example of variable stress might be working on a client deliverable, and for a few weeks, maybe you're particularly stressed out. A fixed stress is something that is not variable. It's there constantly. So for example, you work for a leader who's constantly beating you up at work. You work for a leader who's constantly putting you down. You're a part of a corporate culture that's toxic. Those are more fixed types of stress that are just always there and always lingering inside of your organization and inside of your life. Now, I think regardless of the type of stress that you are dealing with, the strategies that I'm going to go over today are going to be helpful. But if you are in a situation where the stress is fixed, chances are it's not a healthy environment for you to be a part of. Maybe you shouldn't be a part of that company. Maybe you shouldn't be working for that particular leader. So let's go over some of the strategies that I have used, which I think you can use as well to combat stress inside of your organization. So I have a couple notes here of things that I jotted down. The first one is meditation. So when I had a series of panic attacks because I was so stressed out, I had various sessions with a therapist, and she recommended that I try meditating. Now, I got to admit, I'm not a meditative type of person. It's very hard for me, but when I was going through these immense periods of stress, meditation was actually very helpful for me. And I used guided meditations. I actually use the Peloton app because I'm a Peloton user, and they have some really great guided meditations that really help me get out of my own head for a little while. I usually did 10-minute meditations every morning. If I was really not feeling well, I would do another one during the day or in the evening. The reason why these meditations are so helpful is because you get clarity on the situation. It allows you to put things into perspective. It allows you to take a step back and just look at the big picture and to focus on the things that really matter and to put yourself in a more calm state, particularly if you use some of these guided meditations that are specifically designed to calm you and to relax you. So that's the first strategy that you can try. Try a form of guided meditation. Again, for me, the guided part is important. That's what was helpful for me, where somebody actually walks you through exercises and visuals as opposed to just listening to relaxing sounds. But you do what works for you. Maybe the relaxing sounds is great. A second piece, and this has probably been the most important aspect of my stress management in my life, and that has been exercising and eating healthy. I cannot tell you how big, how crucial of a role this plays in my life and in my wife's life and in our family's lives in general, to exercise and eat healthy. Every single morning, 5-6 days a week, the first thing I do before I start working is I exercise. I weight train, I strength train, I do cardio, I try to eat healthy during the day. This is good on so many different levels. Not only does it release those endorphins where you feel good after you do something, but it makes you you feel more confident, you look better. It's just across the board, there are tremendous benefits to exercising and, of course, eating healthy as well. Obviously, if you're putting in a lot of garbage into your body and you see that you're gaining weight, you might lose confidence, you might get frustrated, and you can start to get into a downward spiral when it comes to negative emotions. So eating healthy and exercise, I have found, really helped me stay in that positive state of feeling like I'm accomplishing something, feeling like I'm looking good, like I'm taking care of myself. And it really helps me in very stressful situations and scenarios. Sometimes if I'm having a really bad day, I might even go on the bike again, or maybe I'll go on a particularly long walk. Just something to get my body moving, because I find that when I'm moving, I can oftentimes distract myself and start to think about some other things. So try eating healthy, try exercising. I think that's going to be an important thing for you. Next is I was doing a series of self-compassion exercises. Again, this is something that a therapist recommended to me. And these are self-compassion exercises that came from Dr. Kristen Neff. And this one particular self-compassion exercise that I did kind of has 3 steps to it. So the first is that when you are going through a particularly tough time, the first thing that you do is you acknowledge that this is a time of suffering. And so you might even say, this is a time of suffering. This is a time of stress. This is a time of unhappiness or unpleasant feelings. That's kind of the first step, is acknowledging it. The second thing that you do is you say, suffering is a part of life, or stress is a part of life. Being unhappy at some point in your life is a part of life. It's natural. We all go through it. We all experience it. It's not something that's only prescribed to you. This helps kind of create that sense of connection to the world, to community, to those around you. And then the last step of this is you ask and you tell yourself, may I be kind to myself? And Kristen recommends that you put your hands over your heart. You can go like this, you can go like this, and you say, may I be kind to myself? So 3 steps again. This is a moment of stress. I acknowledge it, but I also understand that stress is a part of life. This is something that we all go through. And may I be kind to myself. May I be self-compassionate. May I guide myself out of this difficult time. May I focus on the positive things. Again, you channel that positivity and kind of acknowledging the time that you're going through. So try that self-compassion exercise. I have found it to be very, very helpful. Another part of that is talk to yourself the way that you would talk to a friend that is struggling. I referenced this in another video that I did. So Ethan Kross, he is a psychologist, researcher. He wrote a book called Chatter. And one of the things that he recommends doing, if you want to practice talking to yourself the way that you would to a friend, is you actually use your name in those types of scenarios and situations. So if you're having a bad day, in my case, let's say I'm having a bad day, I didn't get a speaking gig, or I don't know, something like a course didn't sell well, or a podcast didn't perform well, I would pretend that I am talking to a friend named Jacob. And my friend Jacob came to me and said, hey, you know what? I'm having a really tough time. I just did a speaking gig. I didn't get good feedback, or I just put out this podcast that didn't do well, and I'm just really struggling. And so how would you respond to your friend Jacob? You might say, it's all right, Jacob. It's not the end of the world. You've done a lot of other things before that have done successful, and not everything you do is going to be perfect. What did you learn from this? So you start to talk to yourself in a more self-compassionate way. But again, refrain from using I and pretend that you are talking to your friend Jacob, or your friend whatever your name is in that situation. That helps create a little bit of distance, and distance is oftentimes helpful because it activates a different part of your brain that allows you to give yourself better advice and to be more self-compassionate. So to activate that part of the brain, use your name instead of I. Next is give yourself an outlet. For me, a very effective outlet. Actually, I have a few of them. I mentioned exercise already. Racquetball. I play competitive racquetball. That's been a huge outlet for me. I try to play at least once a week. Another outlet for me has been chess. If I'm very stressed, I might take a couple minutes and just play a few blitz games online. Today, even actually, after recording this video in a couple hours, I have a chess lesson because it was a particularly long day. And chess allows me to decompress, to think about different things, just to focus on the squares on the chessboard instead of all the different things that I have going on. Your outlet might be different. Maybe it's knitting. Maybe it's playing sports. Maybe it's card games. I don't know what it is, but give yourself some sort of an outlet where you can channel any kind of stress that you have. Another thing that you can do is define the stressor. So this is a little bit of a bonus tip, a bonus strategy for you, is define the stressor and see if it's something that you can mitigate. So for example, if you are constantly under very tight project deadlines and those are things that keep stressing you out, can you talk to your team and can you talk to your leader to see if you can expand those project deadlines, or at least try to understand why are they always so tight together? How come we don't have a little bit more time around this? Maybe it's a boss who keeps getting on you and who keeps putting you down or taking credit for your work. If that's the stressor, see what you can do about that. Can you talk to this boss? Can you move to another team? Try to define and figure out what exactly those stressors are and either address them head on or move away from those stressors. In my case, early on in my career, the stressors were the bosses that I had, and they were the companies that I worked at. I mean, I had huge stressors. I didn't want to wake up at 6 a.m. to get to work. I was just dying to get out of the office. And so I tried to address those stressors head on in each of the companies that I was a part of. It didn't work. And so I ended up quitting and going to work for myself. And that's another thing that you need to remember, is that worst case scenario, you can always leave and go do something else. My mom did the same thing. She was a computer programmer. She worked for an insurance company for decades. And she would come home from work crying. And it got so bad. And she was so stressed out because of how her manager was treating her and how her manager's manager was treating her, that my dad finally told her, this is not worth the years that you're giving. It's not worth taking the years off of your life and for you being so unhappy and so stressed. Just quit. I support you quitting. And at the time, my parents didn't have a ton of money, so it was stressful on the house, but it ended up being the best thing that she could have done because she went back to school to get a master's degree, and she's now one of the top marriage and family therapists in Los Angeles. So identifying what that stressor is and how you can either kill it or sidestep it or remove it in a certain way is going to be extremely beneficial for you. So these are the strategies that you can implement to deal with stress at work. Let me just give you a quick recap of what they are. So first, again, define the variable versus the fixed stress. The strategies then in no particular order. We talked about meditation. Second one was exercising and eating healthy. Self-compassion, which is a big one. Talking to yourself in a positive way, the way you would talk to a friend, kind of fits under self-compassion a little bit. Give yourself an outlet. And then we also talked about defining your stressor. Worst case scenario, you can always leave. Get the heck out of there. Get away from that leader if you find that that is what you need to do. So I hope you can implement these strategies inside of your professional and even your personal life if needed. If you like this video, please remember to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel to get more career and leadership advice just like this delivered to you every single week. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.